Hey,
There we go.
Hello.
Mike, whenever you're ready, I can hit record.
yeah, sure. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, so it is 5:31, so the meeting is called to order. This is the governance committee. And I sent agenda the other day with the kind of main things that we wanted to try and hit today. And the first two are things that I think Natalie is gonna kind of bring to us. The one is the meetings room policy, which is one of our kind of outstanding things we didn't get to that really needs to be done because that's one for some unknown reason, the version that's on the website is listed as a draft and we don't even know
Right.
when the last, which is the actual adopted version. So we got to get that fixed. But Natalie had sent me an email a couple weeks ago saying that there's some just practical things about the library's practice with respect to the meeting rooms, which either isn't reflected in the policy or maybe out of sync with the policy in some way or whatever. And so she wanted to kind of bring those up so that when the committee gets around to tackling that, they can kind of take that into account and try and, make sure we're doing it in a way that works with how the library actually uses the rooms or wants to operate the rooms. So I'll let you take it away, Natalie.
Yeah, the ones that kind of stick out right now are the meeting room spaces, so not really the study rooms.
Yep.
Right now, Matt and I talked about this a little bit. Westbrook is kind of offline to the public because about a year ago, the fire inspector came and was just kind of like doing a review of the library and see if anything was a fire hazard or just out of code. And when we did construction, the back hallway that the door is right over here that wraps around the circ and goes right into the admin, that originally was built to hold all of the book trucks. So when staff are taking the books from the book drop and when the bins come in from the weekend, that was originally built so that they had that space to work. Unfortunately, when the inspector came last year, he said it was against code and we had to immediately pivot. So we started using Westbrook as like the staging area for the circ team to kind of like clean out all of the materials. And we also did a huge weeding project, which you probably saw last time that there was like a bunch of bookcases when we had the facilities committee meeting. So that's been cleaned out. So we're trying to figure out how to bring that back online. We know it's in the long range plan, trying to figure out what we're going to do with the Norman's Kill room and with Helderberg, especially with all of the recent Board of Elections stuff. There's some things that in order to work with the Board of Elections and in order to book the Helderberg room, we allow people to book that room 2 months in advance. And we're trying to figure out, well, because we signed a contract with Board of Elections and because of election law, does that mean like that just trumps everything and we have to kick people out of that room? Do they have full access to that room? So there are just some things that are not codified in the policy.
How far ahead does the Board of Elections like tell us what they need as far as the timing, dates and times of the?
That would be a question for Amy. We kind of know roughly. I want to say it's like we kind of know, I want to say 2 months, but we don't know exactly when the machines are being dropped off.
Right.
So it's kind of like the week before, maybe it's just a couple of days. They're like, oh, by the way, we're dropping the machines off now. So if you have somebody who's booking the room like 2 months prior, like we kind of have to tell them like, okay, like, sorry, like they're actually dropping off machines. We have to move you. So it could even just be, like, again, I don't know what election law trumps, but if we put something in the policy that just like, hey, warning, like, you know, the library reserves the right to work with Board of Elections. And I mean, I don't know.
Right.
To that point, there is a state library webinar tomorrow all about public meeting spaces and study rooms that me and the department heads are watching tomorrow. So we will have even more, you know, guidance after that.
Right.
On the meeting rooms, if they just drop off the machines, does that mean nobody can use the room?
So there's miscommunication between the staff that are actually dropping it off and the main, like, I forgot what their title is. I don't know if it's like a counselor or whatever, who's in charge of like the actual Board of Elections.
Commissioner or something?
Yeah, maybe commissioner. But so on one hand, we were told like, oh, the machines are locked up. Anybody can be in this room. But when you read like their guidance and go to their website, it's like, it could be considered like voter tampering. Like they're not supposed to be disturbed or anything. So there's miscommunication between us and the Board of Elections on
Do we
that.
have a contract with them?
Through Albany County, yes. You have to sign
how
it through the
long?
Albany County. Right now, we're just until the end of the year, so they're coming back in October.
All right, so we could choose not to have the elections here. I mean, there's Gildan Elementary School, there's Farnsworth, there's
So
firehouses.
that is what I don't know. So when we were in, you know, director transition and then they called us and they're like, oh, by the way, you signed a contract with us. You know, we're gonna come and do the machines. And Corey and I wrote, you know, the person, you know, back saying like, we're in the middle of transition. We, you know, we don't have the time to, you know, sign this contract. Cause again, we had to get an MOA. So I said, you know, we're not going to sign the contract, you know, maybe in October we can revisit this. I got a call from the commissioner and she's the one who said, you know, due to election law, like you can't refuse this.
All right, so we need to,
Just for the length of the contract?
Yeah, and like I said, I can share that email, like Corey was on it and we went back and forth and like we shared it with legal. And, you know, Erin kind of said, she's like, they're not wrong. So it was kind of like, okay, well, if we have to do this, me personally, I didn't want anything in that room because I didn't want, you know, the staff or anybody, patrons to be accused of, you know, voter tampering or playing, you know,
Sure.
playing with machines.
But that would be the
So-
question I'd ask, is it just because we had a contract with them
Yeah,
that you can't refuse to, in the middle of the contract, you know, to
Yeah.
abandon it?
yeah.
Or are we forced by law to open up our
And that,
space?
right, and that was the weird thing. So like, but early voting was June and then, you know, like we're gonna have the election in October. So like they were contacting me way before like voting actually happened. So I don't, and nothing was signed. So I don't know if it was just like a verbal handshake agreement because we have done it. This would be the third year we have done it. They just assumed that it was going to happen and it was agreed upon, but nothing was signed. And, you know, when we wrote back and we said, hey, you know, respectfully, we can't accommodate this right now with this quick pivot. That's when they called and they said, well, due to election law, like you have to do this. And I, you know, sent it to Erin and she was like, yeah, you kind of have to. So, yeah.
And the question, is it because we had a contract or?
I mean, to my knowledge, I didn't sign anything. So, and that's what I was saying. I was kind of refusing to sign the contract
3 years.
for logistics.
Somebody may have signed a contract, you know,
Yeah.
so let's check it out.
yeah,
I mean, that's a big space to lose, and it used
Yeah.
to be a one-day event.
Yeah.
And now it's what?
The whole is,
Two
so
weeks
is that for
before?
the entire like early voting period? That room is just
Yeah,
basically,
that's why we had the MOA, because it also like we didn't have staff. We had to like adjust their schedules and we had to give like floaters because we were closed on Juneteenth. So,
right,
yeah. Logistically, it was kind of a nightmare, but like to the policy, if we can't get out of the contract, let's say we can't, we need something in there that says like,
You might get
if you
bumped.
book this room during the early voting times, you run risk of being bumped due to election
Right,
law.
right.
So
Right.
that was that, but Erin is on vacation, but I will follow up with her again and just ask her like, hey, we're gonna run into this in October. Like, do we actually, like, what does election law spell out?
okay,
It's interesting.
all right. Yeah, that's, we'll have to get to the bottom of that and find out what's the, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the story, what's the basis of that, and do we have any options there or whatever?
Yeah, and like I said, tomorrow is the state webinar from Division of Library Development, so they'll have some good guidelines for updating our policy, so. And me and the department heads are gonna watch that tomorrow.
Is that available to trustees or is that just for?
Yeah, I can send you I think, Mike, I sent you I think you can register. But yeah, anybody can watch it, so if you guys want, I can send
Send me
you,
the link,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's tomorrow at 2:00.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll see what they say and.
Yeah.
That'll. So anything else on the meeting rooms that we wanna?
And again, the other thing was similar, it was Tawacentha. For the most part, this is an internal space as well, usually the board, and we have our internal meetings in here.
Yeah.
But, we're trying to figure out, again, space is in high demand for the public, so we're trying to figure out more ways, like certain time periods and whatever, that either community groups can book it, or we open it up for a quiet study space. So, just more like things that are currently in practice, we might just want to spell out.
Right.
And how about going back maybe 3 or 4 years where we keep asking if businesses can meet a client here on occasion and things like that?
That's part of when we do which it's overdue, we really need to get done, but the overhaul of it is to deal with those issues of who's allowed to use it and everything, because we did kind of look at our current policy, and I think our current policy as written is not really First Amendment compliant in the way that it kind of tries to limit who's allowed to use it based on, various criteria. So that's going to be part of that. We just have to revamp the policy, but we haven't got around to it. It just hasn't been done. So I'm hoping that will be a priority of this next year, coming up for this committee to, tackle the meeting room policy and just kind of, just do a full revision and make sure that we're, on top of everything. So. All right. All right, do you want to move on to the security camera?
Yep.
issue?
So on Monday, Corey and I attended labor management. We do have a surveillance camera policy currently. And this was a request that came from the admin team. We do have security cameras that cover the entire public part of the library now. Like there's been stuff put in the Helderberg room and, so the public part of the library is covered. In terms of like the back end, there's again, that same hallway, the admin hallway, the loading dock, and some of the grounds outside here. My request to labor management to consider, because again, this impacts the staff, so it has to be negotiated. But my request was to add cameras in shared staff spaces. So that would be the break room and any larger shared staff offices. So for example, there would be one in the admin suite, but there wouldn't be one like in the director's office. There would be one inside this office right here, because it's just shared space, but there wouldn't be one inside the department head's office. Same thing with IT and maintenance and the PPS office. And this came as a request to, one, mitigate risk. We have unfortunately had issues of theft within staff. But also for safety. There's been unfortunately many instances of sexual harassment and workplace violence. And a lot of times when you were sitting in on those meetings, those due process meetings for staff, it's mostly a he said, she said situation. And personally, having lived through this, I would like a camera to corroborate some of our staff stories. So I brought that to labor management. Again, it's impact bargaining. So they have to, kind of discuss it, and there might be some kind of negotiation. If it goes through, we're going to have to change our surveillance policy.
What would be their objection to home laundry? All the public spaces are already covered. What is their objection?
So the way the policy currently reads now, and I believe Erin kind of explained this to me, cameras are not supposed to be where a staff member would, like, you would consider and expect a certain level of privacy. So like, obviously it wouldn't be in the bathroom. It wouldn't be in the wellness room. But the argument there is like, if you're sharing a space with another staff member, you wouldn't expect a certain level of privacy. And that's where the debate is. It's like, well,
And the
no, this is.
policy, yeah, the policy right now, sorry, you forgot it was here. The policy right now actually specifies staff offices will not be.
Yeah,
on
this is
camera.
the language. It says cameras will not be installed in areas where staff and public have a reasonable expectation of privacy, such as restrooms and staff offices.
Right.
So I think it would just be, we need to kind of clarify that,
What a staff
that what
office
is,
is.
that, we specifically say like shared staff spaces where multiple people work in the same,
Yeah.
shared space are, cameras may be placed in those areas, things
Yeah.
or something like that. So that's pretty minor. I would have to see, it's probably okay. I want to look at the access rule because the access rules, they kind of constrain like when we let,
Yeah.
we're not supposed to just be viewing the cameras for all the time for any purpose. It's supposed to be if there's a specific,
Yeah.
so just have to make sure that the language is sufficient to capture the types of incidents that we would want to capture. I had this policy was the very first policy that was up for consideration when I joined the board back in 2021. And I
Full
was
circle.
not happy with a lot of the language in it because there was a lot of inconsistent use of language. And I thought it really didn't make clear, like I could come up with circumstances where it seemed to make perfect sense that we'd want to have access to the cameras, but it seemed to not be in it. And anyway, the discussion there was kind of like, oh, it's good enough. It's not gonna be whatever. So I wouldn't mind taking another look at that too, and just making sure it really serves our purposes. And we, it's, there's understanding you want it to, there'd be, a respect for people's privacy. So you're not just using the cameras, willy-nilly for no good reason, but you want it to be, if we have the cameras, we should be able to, there's a problem that happens, be able to use them for the purpose that they're intended for.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about it at labor management, and I just talked about it earlier today with our leadership team, all the department heads. Understandably so, the department heads are a bit more understanding to it because again, every single one of them has had to deal with like a due process meeting of a staff member or, that ends up being a bad actor that, if we had cameras, we would have been able to, get rid of them sooner. The issue is going to be, getting unit one to kind of get on board and, that's the majority of the staff. So.
And with these also, go ahead.
Right. Can I just ask, because I'm wondering if it really will help, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it either way, because there's no audio. So if these things are he said, she said, that's actually not going to help you unless there's like physical touching, just so you know. It might not meet the department head's purpose in that way. There could be other reasons to do it.
Yeah, I mean, without getting, into detail, I mean, some of the instances that I can think of that involved sexual harassment, you can absolutely corroborate body language.
Okay, great.
And the cameras are good enough that you can zoom in and you can absolutely see like people talking. So, I mean, for me, that would be, when you're doing that due process, that would be good enough to be like, okay, you were here at this time and the way the body language is and, whatever. And like you said, workplace violence, I mean, we have had staff throw things at each other.
Yeah, I mean that certainly, yeah.
And I'll just, I'm putting it out there, if we had cameras in certain areas during the whole cafe of it all, things would have gone, I think, differently.
Are we allowing the public to use the cafe for little groups? Well,
Yeah, no, most of our book clubs take place in there, and I think actually there's going to be a community group meeting in there around 6:30. So yeah, it is being booked out. It's just, something to consider. Like, I know it's part of the long range plan of trying to figure out what we're going to do long-term with that space. So if we end up doing something different, then that means then our policy would have to change to reflect norm and skill. That's all.
Okay, so I think, yeah. So I think the main need is just to, adjust this language, just to make the language clear enough, figure out whatever language would be appropriate to make it clear that the policy permits them in the shared spaces. And then I think then whether you actually put them in those spaces is just going to be a matter between labor management and administration, whatever. But we could regardless, even if that's not settled, we could adjust the policy so that it gave you the option of doing that, if you are able to come to that agreement with labor management and everybody's on board with putting the cameras up, the policy would be compliant with it and you can just go ahead.
Yeah, and to your point, I think especially the department heads, they kind of express that if we can control the parameters of who can access and when, like, if that is more detailed, like give more instances and or maybe there's a log or a certain kind of procedure, they said that would go a long way too, because again, unfortunately, we have that bad actors in every department and every contract. We have had people who have abused the cameras.
Okay.
So.
In what sense?
So this was about 3 years ago. We were kind of loose with who had access to the camera. So it was like all of the maintenance staff had access to the camera. And conveniently, some cameras were disabled.
Yeah, okay, well,
Yeah, so now the only people who have access to the camera right now are myself, Sean, IT department head, and Jason, facilities department head. And in case of an emergency, God forbid, like, live active shooter or anything, the police do have a login. But they do not access it at all, except for like an emergency that comes from us.
we should look at that because the policy has like restrictions around when we're allowed to provide access to the
Yeah.
police. So I don't know.
Yeah, most of the time they need a warrant, but,
Well, and I think there's a little, let me see where, I remember that.
Yeah.
Specifically said about,
to my knowledge, the only person in GPT who has access is our community officer, Officer Hanslick.
yeah,
And, because we just did our active shooter training and he was like, that is the only time we actually access your camera. And he's
Yeah.
like, I'm the only one who has access.
well, we should at least think about whether we want to address, put that in the policy.
Sure.
That, the police, have, access that only to be used in the event of a exigent circumstances or whatever you want to call it, an immediate emergency, or,
I think
Um,
that's in here already. It says exigent circumstances apply, that paragraph. Law
Yeah.
enforcement will be provided immediate access without a subpoena.
okay, where's that,
It's under access to footage. It's the second little paragraph there.
second one? Yeah, okay, so that might be good enough to cover that then, yeah, okay. Maybe we don't need anything for that. But, okay, so, yeah, so I think we'll take a look at this and at least clarify the comment or the, shared office space, question, and then maybe do a review of the rest of it just to see if there's anything that needs to be tweaked as far as, you know, access to the footage and whether that serves our purposes the way we want it to.
Okay,
All right, that's good. That's good. We can pass these along. I'm, you know, I'll pass this along to the new committee and I believe I'm still tweaking the proposed committee membership, but I think that the three of you are all still going to be on this committee. And then I'm hoping as the president who's like, you know, is like an ex officio member of all the standing committees, I'm hoping to still actively participate in this committee because it's my favorite committee. So anyway, I don't like to play favorites, but you know. I am a lawyer, so, you know.
Yep.
But anyway, but we can, you know, pass this along to the incoming committee to tackle that as a priority. You know, also just so that that's ready to go if and when you end up, you know, wanting to roll out cameras in those areas. All right. Well, should we tackle the bylaws then? I have copies if anybody needs one. I don't know. Is it, you know,
Yeah, the new-
I'd like one.
this, it's the one did you, is that recent or?
No, this is last.
Okay, this one is the most recent version. It's the one, and Bethany, you can pull up the one that I emailed the other day. If you open it, not in, I don't know if you have Word or, you know, on your computer, but if you, because if you look at it in the Google Docs, like you don't see the comments that are there. I don't know if there's a way to make them show. But
I
when look-
see red lines.
Yeah, there's also. like,
There's also comments. All right, I'll see if
comments
I can.
inside. If you're able to open it in like Word, you can see some of my comments as well.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay.
To the extent. Oh, you can see them?
Yep.
Okay,
You have to download it.
yeah. Yeah, because I went to print it like just out of the Google Docs in there because I had emailed it and then I went to print it and I was like, oh, it's not showing the comments, so I downloaded it so I can print it from Word instead. Anyway, I mentioned this, I've got a lot of, you know, suggestions and a few of them are just kind of questions to be decided. We don't need to get through all of this, you know, just whatever, you know, if there any things that we can kind of come to agreement on, I would love to have, you know, some revisions that we can kind of move to the board and just get this updated, but, you know, we can pass along to, you know, next year or whatever, anything we don't kind of cover. There's one issue, there's some things that I made some changes in here, but I think it's something that should be put off because it really needs a kind of a comprehensive thought and look at it is our provisions on notice and when and how we give notice of meetings and everything. And I am not convinced at all that our current bylaws or our current actual practice are fully compliant with the open meetings laws, meeting law and our requirement. And also the education law requirements, which in some respects require a little bit more than the open meetings law does for libraries, because we're governed by the education law and it has its own notice requirements. So between the open meetings law and the education law, I'm not fully convinced that we are either our practices or our policy are fully compliant. And it would be good to really go through that and just try and make sure it is. So the couple things I have in here that are about notice, I might just suggest that we don't worry about those today because I think I think it, you know, needs a full look. Anyway, I'm just going to kind of start from the top and mention kind of the changes I made and some comments on them. The first thing is, this is a stupid one, but we're inconsistent on whether we hyphenate bylaws or not throughout this thing. And it's the more kind of standard modern usage is to lose the hyphen and just have it just a word with unhyphenated word. So I just did that to make it consistent throughout. So unless anyone has any objection, I would just make it no hyphen bylaws. That's stupid, but you know, consistency is nice, I guess. The other piece of it is we refer later in toward the end of it, we refer to the fiscal year. It's on the last page. We just have a mention to you know, some that has the annual committee reports that have to be made to the board at the end of the fiscal year. But we never define fiscal year anywhere in here. And we do refer to years and the, you know, terms of offices and things like that in various ways. And so this was in the there's in the, what do you call it? There's like a model or sample bylaws that are in the handbook for trustees, the state library, the library handbook for trustees. And there's like kind of a sample bylaw. It's not, they don't call it like a model, but it's like a sample one or whatever. And they had in there, like they had defined the fiscal year, like right up at the top, like just as one of the things in there. So I thought we might as well do that, and then it makes it clear, and then we can refer to that, and it's a defined term, and we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, we had this conversation about fiscal year recently in a different context,
Oh, yeah.
right? I thought we had it here.
Well, we might have.
We talked about it for the like
Oh.
word training.
Yeah, that's right. The education policy, right?
Right.
The education policy. And, we could, fiscal year is fine, and that's already like, that is our fiscal year that the library runs on, so we can just call it that and refer to it. Sometimes the libraries refer to that as the term year. They call it the term year because it's like your board terms start and end at those dates. And sometimes people call it just an operating year, but I mean, we could just call it fiscal year for everything, just to kind of keep it simple and have one
That's fine.
for it. So anyway, so I have that in here just to call it the fiscal year. The paragraph under paragraph number 1 under Article 1, it had it was the name thing that said the Gilman Public Library, formerly known as the Gilman Free Library, and then it had this information. I updated that a little based on our most recent amendment of our charter, and to add in like the dates of amendment, just because that's how they had, when we recently amended the charter so we could change the length of our terms from 5 years down to 3 years. And the thing we got from the Board of Regents, I think, that approves that. I don't know who approves
The
that.
annual report,
No, the charter amendment that we did. I think.
I think overall it's the Board of Education.
Okay, well, from whoever issued that, we had a certificate they gave us from that, and it listed out, like, it said, the charter dated, September 16, 1988, amended on September 14th, 2010. And then this was a new amendment that they approved. So I've included those in there because it seems to be the way that the state looks at it. They include the original charter date plus the amendment dates as they describe in it. So that's why I did that update there, just to be consistent with
What's
that.
the amendment in 2010?
I don't know. It was the one that we got in 2023 listed that date. It said it's a charter granted on 1988 and amended on the date in 2010. And then they approved that new amendment on 2023, that date on 2023, that was the one that we had
Can
submitted.
you research that from our,
Yeah, what happened 2010?
yeah, I don't remember any amendment.
Did you change terms or number of trustees?
We've always had 12 trustees until, this year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Don't know. So, yeah. So that's those couple changes up there. Then in the paragraph, this is in Article 3, paragraph 2, eligibility. That's just a kind of a rewording because it was just awkwardly phrased, and so it was not quite grammatical. So I just kind of rephrased it but it's not, there's no substantive change there. So moving on. So on the top of, it's like I guess it's like the third page of this marked up version here. There's a paragraph. This is talking, so this is under paragraph 3, which is terms of office. And, we define the term of office and say the normal, it starts July 1st and runs to June 30th. And then this next paragraph is talking about incomplete terms and the role of the nominating committee in putting forward new candidates for office. There was a couple things. First, I don't know where, I thought I had a comment on here. It seemed to have disappeared. I had highlighted this. It says, and this is just something to think about. I don't know if we need to do anything about this, but it says the nominating committee shall solicit interest from eligible persons for the vacant trustee position. And my question was, is that something that we ought to be putting out like formal notice to the public that there's a position open, because I don't know that we've done that in the past. It's been.
If there's a trustee opening,
Yeah,
I think we've always,
do you think have we published for it, like notice?
I think it's just not consistent.
We should be, we might want to be more specific about that, you know,
Yeah, I think it's,
because
you're
one.
right. I
one-
think when there hasn't been someone interested in like running again and there actually is a true vacancy, then I think we post. But if we have people internally and we have vacancies and they want to run again, then I don't think we post. So,
Because I know like we've reached out to like former board members who
Yeah.
are no longer on there to see if they want to come back and fill in for something or whatever. Like, we've done that.
half a year or something.
Yeah, for like a half year thing, but I don't know if in every case, if we've like publicly posted that to the public, there is currently a vacancy and you
no,
can,
that we have not done.
yeah, and so should we, like, I don't know, maybe, you know, it's kind of, maybe we kind of ought to do that, you know, that maybe that's more inconvenient to us if we have to do that, but I don't know, it just seems like it might be good practice. I don't know, so I don't know if people have thoughts one way or the other on that, or whether that's something we ought to be doing as a standard practice. If we have a vacancy and we're trying to fill, then we ought to be putting it out there to the public if there's a vacancy.
I think we should make a notice in the newspaper,
Yeah,
right? Like, that's, it's a,
That's
or,
practice.
I mean, I guess the other side of that, right, is you just leave it to the nominating committee to determine how interest is solicited.
yeah. I mean, right now, it's basically just up to the nominating committee, so we could just leave that as is for now. I don't know, that's just a thought. I don't know, is there any consensus on that, or should we leave it alone for now?
I think the board, if somebody resigns towards the end of their term, sometimes they'll just let it expire.
Yeah, if it's too close to the end of the year. to
Other
be worth
times, if
filling,
it's at
that's-
the beginning, then, and that's the if, and 1 year would be the end. Then sometimes I think they'd ask the former board member if they'd fill in for that 9-month period or whatever. But if there's obviously a vacancy, you know, somebody just got elected and something happens, then, you know, you're talking 3 years. So even though you'd only be appointed until the following year, you're sort of giving that person a leg up. So maybe the vaguer you leave it, the better, so that people can sort of use common sense at the moment, or.
Yeah, I think we should leave it to their
Okay.
discretion, because once we like circumscribe how it's done, then if it needs to be changed in the future, you know, people got to go back in and change it. Are we allowed to do this? So
So, okay, so we'll leave that piece alone. The next thing in that same paragraph, one thing I had put here, and this is just, you know, for consideration, is I added this new sentence because the way it was written is basically the nominating committee solicits interest and then presents a candidate, you know, an individual to the board for discussion and approval. And then it just said, if the candidate's approved, then they become part of the board until the next, you know, until the end of that year, right? And it doesn't say anything about like, well, what if the board isn't happy with the candidate that comes out of the nominating committee, right? Like what if, you know, like it's basically gives all the power to the nominating committee, and they basically have a, you know, like just by virtue of being on the nominating committee, they can control who has access to being put out for that candidate, and there's no avenue for any, you know, thing different. Now, hopefully, the nominating committee will be, you know, at least, you know, on the same page as the rest of the board, and if they have a candidate, it'll be somebody the board will be happy with or whatever, but it leaves that possibility. So I added a sentence in here which said, if the nominating committee's candidate is not approved by the board, any member of the board may nominate another candidate. Just to basically say, look, the nominating committee has the initial thing, they solicit interest, they present a candidate to the board. If for some reason the board rejects that candidate, then any board member can throw out a different candidate in their place. So the nominating committee still has first
Makes sense.
action, so
That's fine.
all right, I just thought it, you know. And
Where
then,
are you on?
What?
Where are you exactly on that?
it's this paragraph right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that new sentence in the middle, and then, there, some of it was just this was a weird one. We had that individual shall be eligible to serve until the next library board election. But that doesn't make sense because the elections happen in May, but the person doesn't take office until July. So we really want them to serve through June, not till the election, but till the end of the fiscal year, basically. Right? So I changed that to say they serve till the end because the way it's stated right now is we appoint somebody to fill a vacant spot, then the election happens and a new person gets elected that's going to take off in July, and it sounds like that person, they're done as of the election, even though there's a gap there of another month and a half or whatever where nobody's there. So I changed that so that it's clear that they serve out the rest of that year. So any objections to any of that?
Oh, that tracks.
All right. I had a comment here on Article 4. I was, because there was something in one of the model or sample policies or whatever that like specifically under like duties of trustees, like listed their duty to do the education requirement. But since we have a separate policy that kind of specifies that, I kind of think we don't need that. So I would probably say ignore my own comment there and just forget that. It was just something I was flagging.
I think that's fine too.
Yeah. I added in, I don't know where, I think I got this from somewhere, but this is under duties of the board of trustees, under oversight, paragraph C is talking about the board shall appoint the library director. It said, who shall be the executive and administrative officer? I made it chief executive just to like clarify that they're like the top person in charge. I don't know. I think I got that from somewhere, but maybe I don't think I just made it up, but.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They are the chief executive, right?
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, moving on, at the bottom of that page, there's meeting attendance, that paragraph starts. It said each trustee shall attend board meetings and be a member of at least, or shall participate in at least one of the standing committees, right? And so I changed, it just said,
We had two, we used to always have two, but you had to be part of two committees.
no, it was only one in here. It was,
Was that when you had 11? Because there were more of you? Or when there were more committees? And I know like a couple.
there used to be more committees.
Yeah, Corey condensed them.
I don't know if it ever was, I think often people have been a member of two, but like this past year, I think almost everybody was on two, but there's only, the bylaws only required one, so at least one. But I was clarifying because later we say that the president is an ex officio member of all the committees. So I specifically accepted the president from this and it specified it wasn't just participating in boards, but be committees, but be a member of at least one committee. Because it says each board member shall attend board meetings and shall participate in at least one committee. I changed it to shall be a member of at least one committee to be clear, like everybody's got to be a committee member in at least one committee, and I excluded the president just to kind of, mostly for clarity and consistency with the other part of it. So I don't know if anybody has any comments on that. Are you okay with that?
That's good too.
All right. Then in this marked up version, the paragraph lettering is messed up. It looks right on the clean version, but for some reason paragraphs got like the lettering got all weird with it. So there's like that. I added, I think we talked about this at a previous time. This is one, it's labeled B. I don't know if that's the right letter. Maybe it is. I don't know. A new paragraph that was just kind of this expectation that any trustee who will be unable to attend a board or committee meeting is expected to notify the president or committee chair of the anticipated absence at the earliest practical time. Just, it's kind of a common courtesy thing, but it's just one of those, like, because the next paragraph is the one, and I think we discussed this change previously, but we can just briefly do it again. This is the provision that is actually required by the education law. That the education law specifies that any board member who is absent for 3 consecutive meetings shall be, and it's stated as a mandatory thing, that they shall be removed or whatever, they're deemed to have, to have abandoned or vacated the position unless their absences are excused by the board. But it doesn't, the education law doesn't provide any procedure. It doesn't say how this all plays out or whatever. And so we had a provision that kind of was there, but it didn't specify how this is supposed to happen or who we were supposed to do. And this came up when I did one of those core training things or whatever, and they were very adamant that you don't have a choice about this. You have to have this because it's part of the education law. If somebody misses 3 and they're not excused, that's the law. They have to be removed, but you can excuse them. So I put in some language here to try and give a process. So after my proposed amendments, here's what it would read. After any trustee fails to attend 3 consecutive board meetings, the president shall offer the trustee an opportunity to provide excuse for the absences. At the next meeting of the board, a motion may be made to excuse 1 or more absences by a vote of the board. If such vote fails or no such vote is taken, the president shall announce that the seat is deemed vacant in accordance with applicable law. And then we say the vacancy gets filled according to the other section where we can fill a vacancy. So that basically, now it's clear that, the law says if they miss 3 and it isn't excused, then they're off the board. Well, now we've said how it happens. We're going to give them notice, say, hey, you've missed 3. Do you have an excuse for this? Let them provide their excuse. And if the board says, hey, I want to vote to excuse this person's absence or whatever, then that's the way it goes. But if they didn't have a good excuse or the board, doesn't buy their excuse or whatever, then that's it. Again, hopefully not something we have to deal with. Was an issue that came up a couple of years ago with one of the trustees who missed a bunch of meetings. So it's good to we didn't have a process in place, it kind of came up and it's like, well, this person has missed, 3 or more than 3 or something meetings in a row, and then there was a big argument back and forth. Well, what do we do? Do we have to take a vote to kick them off? Nobody wanted to make a motion to kick the person off the board. That's very uncomfortable or whatever. But, we never did, it's like, were we out of compliance with the law? Because technically we never voted to excuse it either, it's like, so this gives a process. Any comments, thoughts on that? No. The next paragraph is this paragraph 3, limitations on trustee authority. I just took this straight from the kind of sample model bylaws from the handbook. And it's just trying to specify basically that trustees are not supposed to be acting, on their, exercising board authority without, being given it by the board. Essentially, don't go off on your own thing there. So that language, I think, is directly out of the handbook. I don't know if anybody has any comments. Do we need that? Not need that? Do we want it? Is it fine?
I think you keep section 3, but regarding 3A, does that include the president?
It's an interesting question, because we've had as a matter of practice that the president has often acted as kind of a kind of mouthpiece for the board, and B has consulted with the library administration on things that, there isn't time to bring to the board, or it's minor things that don't go to the whole board. So the president has had a role in doing that, which, the question whether, to what degree that's totally, kosher with, the president presides at meetings of the board and has a few special, authorities, like being, able to vote on all the committees and things like that. But should the president be doing those things? But as a practical thing, I think that the library administration often doesn't want to do a lot of things without at least getting some board buy-in, and the president is at least some board buy-in, even if it's not the whole board and everybody's on it. So I don't know. It's a good question.
If we do want to go that route, if we want to keep the current practice, I think we should expand 5A, just the president's duties. I think we should expand that a little bit.
Yeah, we could. That's. Yeah, that maybe we do that, because then it's kind of, the authority is, specifically there for the president to act. So maybe let's think about that then. Yes.
Command the services of any library employee. That troubles me a bit, because, you go to the desk and you ask them, oh, can you research this for me or whatever? And you're asking for the services of a library employee, or
Yeah,
I go to Amy and say, do you have a copy of this that I can have? Yeah, that's sort of all
Well,
encompassing.
I think, am I right that Amy's position is a
Board clerk.
hybrid position
Yeah.
where she is partly employed by the library and partly employed by the board?
Yep, yeah, her, so both,
She's a special case.
yeah, both Caroline and Amy as administrative assistants, they're basically, they act as the board clerk, so they're allowed to do administrative work for the board.
Well, you know what, I would say these are both very good points that maybe we need a little more consideration and just work out the details. So maybe we put this one on hold for now, this paragraph 3 here, and hold off on adding it into our bylaws as a formal thing until we work out the,
Are you trying to get this in front of the board next week?
I would like to get something, it doesn't have to have everything. We've got 10 minutes left, but if we can cover anything else to get it to the board, anything, the bylaw changes have to be presented a full month before they're voted. So if we get it to the board next week, they wouldn't be voted on until August, anyway.
Would it be, like, just a slight change, would it say cannot command the services of any union library employee? Because then that leaves IT and, the admin staff out of it.
Yeah, it's tough. I think as I took it, as I was reading it, I don't know that my take on it was basically board members are not supposed to be kind of,
We're not special.
we're not the boss.
Direct.
And we're not the boss of the library staff,
Right.
so we shouldn't be telling library staff what to do or saying, I need you to do this for me, go do this, or whatever. Like anything that we need library staff to do goes through you, where we say, hey, could you, and then it's up to you to tell library staff if you think it should be done or whatever, and that's your call.
Right.
And not, so they want to avoid a situation where board members are kind of going in and throwing their weight around and saying, oh, I need you to do this for me, I need you to do that for me. Is it phrased right to kind of capture
Can we
that?
make a milder statement than saying command the services of any library employee? As I said, just day-to-day interactions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we just say something like board members have no supervisory, control or something like that, like to get what you're trying to get to?
Yeah,
To command the services
exactly.
of any library employee beyond that of the general public.
Cannot supervise any library employee.
Is this, I mean, you're a library employee.
Well, and that's what I'm
Are
saying.
you
So
a
the
library
director, well, that's the thing. The director is the board's employee.
Okay, so you're not a library employee.
No.
Okay.
All right, so here's the thing, we don't have to get to the board next week. I'm just like, I just want to keep this moving.
I agree on
So-
keeping it moving. I think if we try to do it piecemeal, it's gonna get,
All right, so if we want to,
Why give them a half-finished product? I mean, I
well,
finish it off and.
I hear you. The thought is that the bylaws are supposed to be a regularly revisited thing anyway, so it's kind of like we should be, every year or 2 years at the longest, we should be at least kind of going over it and making some tweaks, changes as it goes. So it felt like let's at least get some stuff that we want to change, get that changed. And if there's other stuff we haven't got to, kind of pass that along and it'll get addressed in the next year or whenever. But if we think we can keep moving on it soon in the next month or two and just keep it moving, then and have a more complete thing to give the board rather than rushing it and giving them half of it. If there's other priorities that are going to take over and the bylaws are not going to get gotten back to for a year or whatever, I'd like to get something rather than nothing.
You're gonna be on that committee anyway, so I think you don't have to worry about that.
All right. So let's give this one some more thought and figure out if we want to do some more phrasing, tweaking on it or whatever. And yeah, so let's leave that for, if anybody has thoughts on rephrasing that or how we want to do that to really,
OneDrive.
what?
You use Microsoft, right? Like you write this, you have this open in Microsoft Word.
I
Can
do.
you share the link to it and I can mark up like directly in the document?
Yeah, I mean, it's not online.
Okay.
It's, yeah, I mean,
Figure it out.
I can just send you, the copy and let you make changes before I go into it again, and then I'll work off whatever you give me with your changes, or I can do it that way if you want or something. I don't have it in, it's not like a network anywhere.
Okay, I've got the e-copy that you sent in the.
Okay, yeah,
I'll take a look at that.
okay. Yeah, I'll hold off. I won't make any changes on this until, I'll let you, if you want to.
No, go ahead. I'll make mine and we'll chat at next meeting, we can.
Yeah.
Merge.
All right.
If I'm governing. Thanks.
Then this, so the next, we got 5 minutes, we'll see what else we can cover. The next provision, this trustee removal, this is another one that I pulled out of the handbook, the model bylaws, but that's, I don't think we need to say it because the education law gives us that power. The education law specifically says that a board of trustees can remove or suspend a trustee for misconduct. This language is directly out of the education law. So I don't think we need to say it, but I don't think it hurts to kind of specify and say that the power's there. So I put it in there to make it clear. So, okay. Okay, so that's where we are now. Next page. So the next thing I had, this is a question. This is on the top of, I guess it's page 7. It's under terms of officers, paragraph B. Right now, our bylaws allow officers to serve for 3 years. They only allow committee chairs to serve for 2 years. And I just wanted to throw it out there. Do we, are those numbers right? Do we want to align them so they're both the same, either both 2 years or both 3 years, or is it fine to have them different, or do we want them some other way? I don't know if anybody, I think term limits of some kind make sense, just so somebody doesn't kind of dominate a position, whether it's an office or a committee chair, like for, a long period of time and not let anyone else have any say on that.
I like the 3 years being consistent.
Would you say 3 for both then?
Yeah.
Okay,
With the terms.
right. So that's fine then. And then, so when we get to it, I'll make the change for the committees, which right now is 2. I think I suggested that change here on this other page. Yeah. Okay. So we'll stick with 3 for the officers, and we'll change committee chair to be 3 to align with that.
Good question about 3A. In the event 2 or more trustees are nominated for the same office, the vote should be by a majority of the board, should be plurality of the board.
Where is this?
Same page, 3A. Election of officers shall take place at the first meeting of the newly seated board. Not the 3.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so the vote shall be by a plurality of the board. Unless we want to specify something about runoffs. Or do you need 5 plus 1, or do you need half plus 1 to?
I mean, our normal voting rule is everything needs to be a majority of the board to be a valid vote. So this would be like a different voting rule than we use for everything else. I know, like, if you have more than 2 candidates, you might not get a majority in a single vote. Does that mean we just have to
Just keep going, you run it again?
keep going until somehow you get a majority? I don't know.
What's the thought into that one too? We might need just like a bit of a runoff in there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's, I mean,
Or maybe this is just like a bridge we need to cross when we get to it.
yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna ask if that's ever even happened that we know of.
not that I know of. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never, since I've been here, there hasn't been any like contested fights for offices. So it's kind of all got worked out ahead of time by the nominating committee, and then people just kind of gone with that. So that's more of a theoretical problem. I don't know,
Sure,
but
we can leave it.
yeah. I made in the paragraph B there, it's 4B, the terms of officers. I also made one small change. It said no officer shall serve in the same capacity for more than 3 consecutive years. I changed it to 3 consecutive terms or partial terms, just to clarify, I thought that was clearer that way, just.
It is much clearer because, like, I forget what was it, between Kathy and somebody else. Then we weren't sure because she had come in the middle of
Oh,
the term and
we didn't know how the.
we
how it
didn't know.
applied.
So this is
So it's better,
nice addition.
read clearer.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good then. Then, and this is gonna be the last thing, because I actually have to, I gotta get moving after 6:30. And is there another committee coming in now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got personnel
Okay,
next.
okay. Duties of the vice president. the way it was phrased before, it was really, as I see it, the vice president there's two separate ways that they come into play. One is if the president vacates the office and isn't president anymore, then the vice president steps up and takes over the position. The other is just if they're absent, right? If the president is out of town and can't attend the meeting, then the vice president presides and runs the meeting. That wasn't clear here. It said before, it said, in the event of the absence, a disability or vacancy of the president, shall perform the duties associated with the presidency for the remainder of the term. I mean, that makes it sound like if the person just is missing for a meeting, then the vice president takes over for the rest of the term. So I reworded to clarify that there's two separate things. If the president is absent, they preside for the meeting. If the president vacates the office, they take over the office.
Right.
And so I just tried to make that clear that
There's one other scenario.
Yeah.
That isn't addressed. I don't know if it needs to be, but it did happen once on the school board where both the president and the vice president had to be gone. And so the way they chose, who would lead that particular meeting was by a vote of the board. Matt will do it this time.
we're just wrapping up governance. We're just about done. So you're welcome in.
Oh, okay. I was like-
No, you look like you thought you were in the wrong place or something.
I did for a
Yeah,
second.
I'm
but
just
it's
letting you
kind of the same people,
know.
so.
You're in the right place. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that's worth, I mean, we had a situation where we had,
2018, all of it. I think a bunch of
We-
trustees left.
we had well, not just that, it was when, who was the president before Kathy?
Caitlin Downey?
Yes, she resigned
Yeah.
and then the vice president resigned immediately after she resigned.
Mhm.
And so we had those two resignations happen, like, one right after another. We had.
And then a couple of months, the treasurer resigned.
Yeah. But those two happened
Yeah.
because
At the same
was it Noreen? Was it her name?
Yep, Noreen.
So Noreen was the vice president. And as soon as the president vacated and she was going to take over, she was like, I don't have time for this. I'm resigning too.
Yeah.
And then we had double vacancy. So maybe we do want to put something in here just so we can run a meeting and have it. All right. All right. I'll try and come up with some language for that, for a double vacancy, and then we can address that and put that in there. All right, so I guess we're not gonna put this to the board immediately. We'll keep working on this. And hopefully in another month or two, then we'll have a more comprehensive bylaw revisions to go. That sound like a plan?
I think so.
Okay.
All right, well, in that case, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. All right, 6:32, the meeting is
right.
adjourned.
Bye.
Luck.